what we want to tell you today is how we have changed our practices, both at the central node and at our general infrastructure around Europe, to move from from actual visits to remote access and training. Then, as Jean-Luc was saying, I am the senior program manager for Instruct, and I am directly involved in all activities in Instruct, but in particular in the activities that relate to access and training. Then a little bit of what is Instruct. Instruct is the European research infrastructure for structural biology research. And we have activities that relate to research visits, training, internship, R&D funding, communication, networking, everything that we can do to help the structural biology community in Europe. And how we organize ourselves to do this is that we are the single point of access to technology and expertise for structural biology research. We have 15 members, which are 14 countries plus the EMBL. And each of these countries or organizations pay an annual subscription that allows their scientists to access a range of our services through our portal. Our services are offered in 26 facilities across Europe, and that they are organized in those 11 centers that you can see as red dots in the European map. And this is just a quick look of what sort of facilities we offer. We have 84 different services at the moment that goes from sample preparation to biomolecular analysis to 3D structural analysis. And we offer our services both to academic researchers and to industry. The system is the same for both communities. A bit of the management changes. I'm happy and I'm here to answer any question if you have about those modalities. We really have, in our extensive service catalog, we encourage multidisciplinary approaches. Then and scientists can apply for more than one technique and in one time. And how we do this is by you go to your website, you click in the red request access, and the research proposal is submitted through a system called ARIA. That is our own software that we have developed to manage the whole process from application to completion of the visit. And then we fund these visits, and we used to fund the consumables and the access, and we also used to fund the travel and accommodation. But in the last year, that part of our work was considerably reduced. But science continues, and we have to find a way to continue our access even when people cannot physically get to the centers. Then how did we do that? We started doing that by offering our access to technologies and services in a remote way. And that was different from facility to facility. Some facilities were already offering remote access. Some facilities have to move from normal visit to remote access in a very quick turnabout. And some are still doing this transferring. Some are still managing the change. And we have to keep our community informed. I contacted personally each one of the proposal applicants of hundreds of proposals to let them know what the situation was. And also in our website, we keep a list of each technology if they are open to physical visit or for remote access, because in some cases, people can still, in some countries, visit in a normal way. But access is not the only thing Instruct does. We also do training. We offer training that is very hand-on training and is delivered by all our centers. Many of our courses were first postponed, and then we transfer them to remote training. And this also has to change considerably how this training can be organized. For example, I'm showing you a case from our center in the UK. This is the Ashbury cryo-EM center. And you can see that Rebecca, our manager, had to put 4 cameras to be able to show how the access was being done. Then the sample is sent to the center and she can show physically how the sample is being analyzed, in this case by electron microscopy. Then all of these resources, some were already there and some were they have to be increased in a great level in the last few months. We also created a resource center with information. As you know, structural biology has been crucial in the analysis of the SARS virus and of the COVID-19. And we have collected all of the information in the website and provide information to the community. And we have done a lot other things that I don't have time to go through, but I am passing out to Johanna, and then we will happy to discuss any of the issues I mentioned or any of the ones you may be interested in I haven't have time to mention. Thank you.
Great, so I'll take over from here then. And I'll tell you a little bit, let me set up my screen sharing. I hope you can see it now. Okay, great.
Perfect.
So I'll tell you a little bit about the how remote access looks like from the Eurobioimaging perspective. And I think you'll see a lot of similarities to what Claudia already talked about for Instruct. And I think this is very interesting to think about the cross-discipline similarities. And I think that's also maybe something we can discuss afterwards to hear your experiences in the different fields you work in when it comes to remote access. So Eurobioimaging is the European research infrastructure for biological and biomedical imaging. And before I get into our approach to remote access and remote training, I also want to briefly introduce what we normally do. So similar to Instruct, we are also a distributed research infrastructure. We have our nodes all across Europe, and we have at the moment 25 nodes that are made up of 112 different imaging facilities that are really spread out all across the continent. And these imaging facilities offer our Eurobioimaging users open access to more than 40 different technologies that span the cutting edge of imaging, from biological imaging to biomedical imaging. So covering a very broad range from atomic force microscopy to patient MRI and PET scans, with everything from electron microscopy and light microscopy in between there. The majority of our service offer really consists of bringing this open access to these imaging technologies to our users. And alongside this access to the instruments, our users also get support and training from the expert staff at the facility, and that's sort of part and parcel of a user visit. So this actual hands-on training is really important for what the service that we offer. We also support our users with image data questions, but because that is much more easily done in the remote access context, I'll mainly focus on the open access and the training parts today. And we're really open to all scientists, independent of where they work, what their field of research or expertise level is. And normally when a user comes to Eurobioimaging, they submit a proposal that then gets reviewed, and then they get access to the facility. And that access means that the user takes their sample and gets on a plane, gets on a train, and travels to the facility to do their experiments. And here I'm just showing you a visualization of some of our user travel from our interim operations phase. So you can see that really travel is very central to what we do, to our service offer. So that of course meant that the travel restrictions that came along with COVID were a big challenge for us and for our facilities. And so while some of our facilities were already providing some level of remote services, the majority of them was relying on direct user access. And so we really had to pivot to remote access during COVID. And it's been actually really amazing to see how our nodes have adapted to these new challenges and have continued to provide user service to our users, even under these fairly challenging conditions. And this is really, there's quite a wide variety of what this looks like at the different nodes. So some of our facilities now provide full service remote access. where the users mail in their samples and then the staff does the imaging and sends the data back to the users. Others provide virtual microscopy, where the user sends the sample and then gets through their own computer access to the microscope computer and remotely controls the actual machine. Our nodes have really done a lot of investment developing remote user training and remote training courses to really give the users also the sense of what it's actually like to work with the physical machinery, to really get this, this training effect as well. But it is, of course, in some ways, some technologies and some types of samples are easier to adapt to remote access than others. And this has been very different for different nodes, depending on what their research focus and area of expertise is. And certain samples, of course, are easier to fix samples, and samples that are easy to ship are more amenable to remote access, while other samples like live cells that are very sensitive, it's very hard to do remote access under these, with these samples then. Our nodes have really developed these remote access approaches under very challenging conditions, because most of them really started developing remote access during the COVID-19 lockdown. So while they had themselves restrictions on staff level, some of them were trying to figure out how to do remote access while only one person could go into the facility. And they were also overcoming a lot of technical limitations. So for example, most microscope computers are not connected to the internet normally for security reasons. But of course, you can't do a Zoom meeting on a computer that's then not connected to the internet. So they had to figure out a lot of these sort of very tiny details that really were roadblocks there. And they've gone to a lot of effort to figure these things out. And I just wanted to show you here a picture. This is from one of our nodes at EMBL from a recent training course, where they had 4 different camera angles, professional film lighting, to really allow the trainer to show how they interact with the microscope, so that the user can get this real sense of how you physically handle this piece of machinery. And as our nodes, the facilities have been figuring out how to do remote access, this exchange of experience has been crucial. And we really, as Eurobioimaging, saw ourselves as this platform for people as they are figuring these things out, to share their experiences so that people don't have to reinvent the wheel. So we've started this expert group on remote access and training that has been a real, a good platform where people share their experiences. And this has also been a place where we've been very actively collaborating with our industry partners through our industry board coordinator, Claudia, who I know is in the audience today as well. And because this has been very fruitful, because our industry partners really have a lot of the same challenges that they had to overcome when it comes to remote access. They have to do remote service on the machines. They have to train their staff remotely. And so they've been able to share their experiences with the academic staff at the facility, and we have industry representatives as part of our expert groups, and that's been a very fruitful sharing of experiences and getting this communication started there. And we've also collected training resources that the industry had already access to, that have been, they have access to filming equipment and setups that maybe a smaller facility wouldn't have. So we've been able to really collect these resources from our industry partners that are then really useful for the facilities as they're putting together their virtual training courses. And it's also been really important for us to work with our partner research infrastructures to share these experiences across domains. And I think this is why also Claudia from Instruct here, we wanted to present this together, because there's a lot of similarities that we can learn from each other. And one last point that I wanted to make in sort of a similar vein as this meeting as well, a research infrastructure is not just a collection of tools and technologies, it's also a community of people. And we've all been sort of isolated. It's been really important for us at Eurobioimaging to keep our community together, to keep people connected as things are changing and things are evolving. And this is something we started actually during the first lockdown. That was a very informal check-in while everyone was at home and trying to figure out this new situation, that we are now calling the Eurobioimaging Virtual Pub, that's morphed from this informal get-together on Zoom to a weekly seminar with over 100 people in attendance normally, where we share scientific discoveries, the different facilities present their work and their newest updates. And so building this community has in some ways been a challenge, but in some ways we've also seen more access because we can, virtually get together much easier across the whole of Europe, which would not have been possible if we were traveling. So we can have these weekly international gatherings. Okay, and with that, I'm at the end, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Oh, thank you very much, both of you. It's very interesting, and I'm sure you have a lot of more experiences to share, and whether they are good or bad experiences. And I could hear that there's a lot of challenges, and how to help people still do. Providing still possibilities to do experiences and access to users. And so is there anyone in the audience who would like to comment, share their own experience, or who would have some questions for either Claudia or Joanna? Yeah, I see a hand there. Caroline?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I have a question to both. What about the workload for the staff at the facilities or the institutes themselves? Because I'm from ILL, Institut Laurent Langevin, which is also a user facility, and remote access is changing not only the type of work, but also the workload at the institutes.
Yes, I think that's a super important point. Thank you for raising that. That's definitely something that we've also seen in our facilities, that remote access requires much more time and effort from the staff, both the actual experiment as well as the training, with our experts estimating that it takes them about 2 to 3 times as long to train users virtually than it does in a direct contact setting. And I think also, as you highlighted, I think also it requires different skill sets than was maybe previously the case. So for us, a lot of the facility staff are, experts on the actual instruments, they're the technology experts, but now in many cases, they're also doing sample preparation, which is really much more on the biological side. And so this is really requiring also more staffing, higher staffing levels, and I think more training, new skills for the staff as well.
Absolutely, I agree. And there is a lot more troubleshooting you have to do before an event. Because when you are going to have an event, for example, a training event in person, you can solve things as it happened when you are all in the same room. But when you are planning a virtual event, you have to plan and organize a lot more carefully in advance and send information and materials, everything in advance. And that requires a lot more support, not only from the trainers, but a lot more administration support, more management support. A lot of tasks needs to be shared. And this is something that in Instrac we have tried to, centrally at the hub, we have tried to support our centers in their activity as much as we can. But it has definitely been an increase in the workload, both at the facilities and at the hub.
Thank you. Any more questions or comments? Nigel?
Yeah, I have a question. I wonder, the remote access to facilities is really cool. I think that's tremendous, the progress made. Do you think that will continue when we return to normal? Because it's really an extension of your offering.
I think so. I think many of the changes we have done are here to stay, but we have to, some changes need further developing. Because, for example, in an access visit, not only you get your research done, you also get trained by the experience of visiting the facility. That experience is, if you are, as there are different sort of remote access as Johanna was describing, but if you are sending your sample to be analyzed, part of the training that you used to get will get lost. Then we have to increase our training activity to make sure that we compensate for that lack of training at that point. But I think the many of the remote access now available will stay, and that help, for example, for the international reach of infrastructures. It will be a lot easier for us to collaborate from nations on South Europe with a remote access mode. Then I do believe that not only in this, but also in networking, and for example, what Johanna was mentioning of the getting together as a community, we also set up a webinar series that we're starting now. And a lot of those things I think are here to stay because they have been positive changes in between all the negative things going around.
Yeah, I think I mostly agree. I think a lot of this is going to stay, especially I think the seminars and some of the remote access to the technologies as well. I think from a Euroimaging perspective, it's going to really depend on the different technologies. There are certain technologies where definitely this has been sort of maybe a surprising kickstart to a development that was anyway happening of more remote access orientation. And I think that has a lot of advantages, as Claudia was outlining, better access for more people just globally. And also, with climate change, we want to all reduce our travel. But I think certain technologies, at least on the imaging side, will continue to require at least some level of direct access by the users, just because the work is so diverse that it becomes very difficult for the facilities that host the users to provide all the different samples and for the staff to provide all the different biological expertise. So I think there will be, let's maybe say 70% will stay, and I think 30% will maybe go back to normal in the long run.
So I can hear that there's a lot of opportunity as well coming through this. And we have a question in the chat. I don't know, Aleftina, if you want to say it verbally, or otherwise I can read it.
Good afternoon. Probably I have a problem also with my microphone.
We hear you well. Take over in case there's something.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I'm sorry that my video doesn't work today. I came from Synchrotron in Berlin, and for us a typical experiment is a week. But what about the typical time of experiment at your facilities? How long is a single experiment is? Is it a question of several hours or several days? So could you please provide some information?
I'm happy to. Then our techniques are very varied. Then our duration of project are also very changing. In some cases, it could be a matter of hours. We have also access to synchrotron within Instruct. But in others, it can be months. There is, for example, the nanobody discovery, which is offered by our center in Belgium. In that case, the work, you can say that our unit is a day. Then you can say that the experiment is 15 units, 15 days. But those 15 days are done in a 6-month period where the access is taking place. In this case, it has always been remote access with some visit in some cases. Then depending on which one of the 64 different technologies I show you there, each one of them has a different length. I will say from a few hours to months in some cases.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, thank you.
I think the picture is very similar for us. It's quite varied depending on the different technologies. Usually, I think for the internal users of imaging facilities, when they come from the same institute, it's usually in the order of a couple of hours to days what is being imaged. But the Euroimaging users that then travel, so this involves already much more pre-planning, then their experiments are usually on the order of a couple of days to weeks. And then we'll, of course, have some users that will be doing repetitive studies over months, but then they won't be doing sort of continuous work over months, but occasionally over a longer period of time, as Claudia had also outlined.
Thank you.
I can see that, Jürgen, you have a question on the challenges of shipment.
Yes, so yeah, my name is Jürgen Larsson. I'm the Senior Logistics Officer at European Spallation Source. I don't have the science approach to this. I have the handling approach, a very practical approach to this. And I was just wondering if you developed some kind of standardized communication to secure the supply chain when going from hand-carried samples to shipped samples, and if there was any specific challenges with it.
Yes, indeed. Actually, we are discussing to having a workshop specifically about sample preparation and handling, because it has been a challenge, and a challenge that depends in which sample for which technique, but also depends from where. We were having an international call a year ago, and we have had samples shipped from South America to Europe, and it has to be organized. We keep a very, this system I was telling you about, area that allow us from a submission all the way to the visit, also allow us for a very continuous communication between the facilities and the applicants. And at the hub, we can monitor that communication, and if there are problems, we can help and we can assist. And then if you put in we have each one of our applications have a PID, an identification number. And if you put the identification number in our system in ARIA, you can see all the messages and all the information that relates to that particular application. And it's one of my team tasks every day to check that no user is having issues with samples, with facilities no answering, with trying to report and the system doesn't work. Whatever problem, we every day are there to help them to make sure that things happen in the best possible way.
Yeah, the shipping is definitely an important area of developing remote access, and we've seen people sort of come up and sharing their experiences with very creative solutions for shipping. So one of the something that stuck out in my mind is one of the best shipping ways to ship cover slips with fixed cells on them is in contact lens containers, because they're very cheap and easy to get, and they're very clean, and these are very creative solutions to problems that we've had didn't have before, but that people are now coming up with.
Would there be an upside to have a standardized way in handling samples in the science community, or do we like to encourage the innovative approach?
I think some standardization would be interesting, but I do think that the samples will be very different. So that might be quite challenging to find sort of the smallest common denominator there. So I'd be interested to see what this would look like.
Thank you.
I think in our community, the structural biology has been sending sample long before this situation happened. Then there was already procedures at synchrotrons that were already established that we were able to share with other facilities. But as Johanna said, it's difficult that one solution applies to all the different samples and to all the different techniques. But we definitely share internally within Instruct, but we are always collaborating with our colleagues in other infrastructure like Eurobioimager, EU Open Screen, all of the other, to see if there are solutions we can exchange and share.
Thank you very much. So we are on time now. We can keep the conversation open. Ute, yeah.
Indeed, because we have two more questions in the chat. I think it would be useful to address them before we close out.
Yes, of course. And I was actually thinking also to put these questions back to the LinkedIn group, so then we can continue. You can continue the discussion there. And if more people have other question, comment on this topic, this is a platform for that. So Karel, welcome to this Enrich Your Coffee. Do you want to take the floor and ask your question? I think it's for Joanna, this one.
Yes, thank you for this. I was interested in this virtual pub. To what degree is it a planned affair, and to what degree is it really about work versus social talk? You're talking about a group of 100 people. I find it hard to imagine it's a pub anymore, but maybe you can just explain a little bit. Thank you.
Yes, this has really shifted over time. So it really started off as a regular meeting with fairly little pre-planning, with open discussion in a smaller group. But then over time, as sort of things have returned, so this started in March last year, when really a lot of people were really in lockdown, sitting at home, not being able to go to work. And then sort of as things have had over the summer last year and the fall gone back a little bit more to normal, we had sort of transitioned this into more of a seminar situation, where it's now we have a planned schedule with invited speakers. We really still try to make this interactive, and we have sort of a core group of people that join every week, and there is then people know each other, and there's chat, especially beforehand in the 5-10 minutes before the Zoom meeting starts. But it has become much more sort of an organized affair over time.
Thank you. Yeah, it seems like we are kind of all missing these networking activities, the good old days. Huh? Another question from Rafal, if you want to ask it.
That's me. I'm also new to this group. My name is Rafal Danin-Borkowski, and I work in the ULIC Research Center in electron microscopy. I'm not sure if this is a question for this group, but the question was whether there is a working group trying to develop improved solutions for remote operation of instruments, for both for scientific staff and for users.
Yes.
Actually,
so go ahead, Claudia.
Actually, we do have an annual event organized by Instruct about electron microscopy best practices. That, of course, it used to be in person, and it used to be more about a visit, but now it's likely will happen virtually. Then we organized, we have the first edition was in Strasbourg, I believe, in our center in Strasbourg, and we have another edition of this very popular event in Asbury, in our center in the UK. Then definitely we organize that sort of events. But in addition to this, there is sort of exchange of experience for cryo-EM managers, mainly. We are also, with Johanna, planning to organize an event on remote access and training for research infrastructures in the frame of the project EOSC Live. Then this we are hoping to start advertising soon, and will be an opportunity. One of the areas we're going to cover will be remote access to electron microscopy.
Thank you.
Yeah, and maybe I can also add that in Europe Imaging, we have an expert group on remote access, and this is both for electron microscopy as well as for light microscopy. We cover both remote access as well as remote user training in this group, and this group isn't restricted to members of the Europe Imaging node. So this is open to everyone who is in an imaging facility within Europe. So you'd be very welcome to join this group if you wanted to. I'm going to put my email address in the chat, and if you're interested, you can drop me an email.
Thanks.
Oh, thank you very much. Is there any more questions or comments? No. So Madison has put on the chat the link towards our LinkedIn group page. So please don't hesitate to go there, and you are more than welcome to engage in any type of discussions that you think that is interesting for the community. And we will meet again next week on Thursday with one of our project partners, so Ilaria, who will discuss with you technology transfer and web portals opportunities. And we hope to see you back next week and the following weeks. And one thing I wanted to say about this new format is I strongly invite all the community to come to us if you have any topic that you would like to discuss with each other, such as what we just did today with Claudia and Joanna. I'm sure there's a lot of other things that can be shared. And so please don't hesitate to come back to us and propose any topic, and we are more than welcome to help you with implementing and preparing it. So thank you very much for today, Ute, or anyone else, if you want to give some words.
No, I think that was a splendid start into the new year. So we are looking forward to more of these discussions and to staying engaged with you. As Angelo said, I mean, come up with ideas and we're happy to put them out to the audience. So thanks again, Johanna and Claudia. Very, very helpful and useful. No? So
have a nice afternoon.
Yeah, take care.
Thanks for having us. Thank you.
Bye all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you all. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.